Sure that I had everything that I needed because I needed one more microphone and I didn't have it, and I realized that at the very end. And I'm sure these two guests that I have in here with me today will be able to probably give you a lot of insight into why I do some of the things that I do, because I'm just a little bit off the rails most of the days. And I have Tammy Cupp with me here along with Mike Freeman, and both of them are clinical psychologists, counselors, hypnotherapists, jacks of all trades. And are you, Mike, you've been with me once already. You probably can help diagnose me as the day goes on, but welcome back in.
Hey, thank you. It's good to be back, Jim.
And you brought a partner in crime today. Introduce Tammy for me just a little bit, will you?
Tammy Cupp. Tammy Cupp has been with me for 6 years in the hospital for 6 years. Does an outstanding job with working with patients and different things, different areas, different diagnoses, and she's also my moral support. She tells me.
Tammy, welcome in.
Thank you.
You told me you were just here to kind of provide moral support for Mike, but we're not going to allow that to happen that way. You're going to have to also be part of the conversation. So get ready.
I'm ready.
Mike will tell you, we put you through the ringer here, don't we, huh?
It's easier, I think, with 3 than it was with 2, Jim. So I'm excited about having the third party in play.
Tell me a little bit about yourself, Tammy. Where are you from originally?
Originally, I'm from Lambertville, Michigan.
Okay.
Came back into this area with my family when I was in 3rd grade. I've been in Northwest Ohio ever since.
Wow. So you are really pretty much a Buckeye more than a Michigander or a Wolverine. Are you a Wolverine fan, though?
I hold true to my roots. I'm a Wolverine all the way.
Well, now, probably a lot of people just turned the radio down.
Sorry.
But then there's a lot of them that didn't, because there are a lot of Wolverine and Michigan State fans around this area as well. So that's okay. Yeah, we don't judge here. Tammy.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
This is almost the opposite of what you do. I mean, you come in here now for therapy when you come to talk to me. Okay, right, Mike?
That works for me.
That works.
Yes.
I'm the guy that all the therapists come in and let their hair down with. So that's kind of what we're going to do here today. Let's talk about something, Mike. First of all, there are 2 of you. Do we have enough need for the 2 folks that basically help people who have depression and all kinds of normal everyday issues in Northwest Ohio?
I once had a gentleman tell me, that he sometimes he doesn't deserve the money he gets for the amount of work he does.
Yeah. On
certain days.
Yeah.
And other days he doesn't get paid quite enough for all the work that he does on certain days. So not every day do we need to have 2 people at the hospital, but some days 3 would be very nice.
Yeah.
So it comes and goes. There's an ebb and flow, and we get consults from 3 different facilities. Most generally Montpelier and Bryan, ICU, ER consults. And we already have booked patients or booked clients that come in routinely to see us. So we have to fit our time in with an emergency or a walk-in. One of our employees gets bad news or something happens, and so yeah, it's 2's adequate, but sometimes not so much.
Yeah. Let me be a little more specific for everybody listening. These people are both with the Counseling Services Department or Division of the hospital here. And they basically work here in Bryan and Archibald, both guys?
Yes, we have offices in Bryan and Montpelier, just a part-time.
I'm sorry, yeah, Montpelier.
Yeah, Montpelier, and we also have an office space in Archibald, and but we use them periodically, but for the most part, to come to the Bryan office.
And when you look at your webpage, just to give folks an idea, they're basically helping substance abuse assessments, treatment and referral, employee assistance program, and company contracting, depression, anxiety, communication issues, parenting challenges, stress management, behavior changes, physical, psychological, and sexual abuse, violence, grief and loss, divorce, adjustment, drug and alcohol dependence and abuse, hypnosis for smoking cessation, weight management, anxiety, insomnia, stress, depression, chronic pain, and more. So why aren't there like 4 of you? Holy smokes, man. That's a lot.
It is. It is indeed.
And so we have a situation at this point in time that, you know, how long has this been going on? Mike, you've been doing this here. You've been here for 20, right?
20 years in Bryan. Yeah.
Okay.
I've been total, I guess, about 31 years in the mental health business. 11 years at a psychiatric center, and as an employee, and not as a patient. But I like to clarify that for the listeners who are wondering.
That's always important.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah.
So, in things, I've seen things change over the years. In a lot of the questions I think you were asking a little earlier about, you know, why is it that we are, as society, is a little more in need of mental health and mental help, and you know, and Tammy, I guess, was answering, you know, we fail to do a lot of things, and or we're disregarding some real basic kind of things. And I'm going to just go ahead and pitch this back at Tammy, because her points that she was making earlier was so right on target. So I'm going to hand that one off to you, Tammy.
Yeah, Tammy. Well, but you know what? Before we got started here today, it's always kind of fun because they come in and we sit down and we chit chat a little bit, and I ask a couple questions. We just start to get a little relationship going here of some sorts. And I asked Tammy, you know, why do we need counselors? Why are people so stressed out? Why are people always in need of these different things to help with these problems? And Tammy had a really good answer. So sit down. Let's go back over that. Tammy, how's that? Huh?
All right.
Do you have your notes still?
I do not.
Okay.
As you can see, Mike's the one with the
all the
notepad
notes?
and the glasses and the pen. He's far more prepared than me.
So why do we all stress out nowadays?
I believe we are extremely stressed out as a society as a whole. We don't allow any margin in our lives. We feel obligated to have something that we're doing, something we're working towards from the first waking moment until we go to bed. We feel we constantly have to be busy, and in so doing, we don't offer ourselves any downtime, any time to just be present and in the moment, enjoy the breeze outside, or perhaps listen to the birds singing, or just really enjoy a conversation with our family. Instead, it's always goal-oriented. It's constantly about what we need to do, and if we're not doing something, then we're concerned of what we need to be doing or what we have ahead of us. And it's a high-stress way of thinking. Yeah. And in the mental health world, what we deal with, I try my best to address mental wellness is tied directly into physical wellness. It's a holistic approach, really.
Okay.
And the mind directly affects the body directly affects the mind. And so when we get to that consistent, goal-oriented, pressing state of mind, it does affect our physical wellness.
Yeah. What put us there? Okay, I mean, I'm an older guy. I'm pushing retirement age at this point in time. When I was a kid, things seemed to be a little more Andy Mayberry type lifestyle. Nowadays, it's not. When did all this change, and how and why? Do you have a feel for that?
I wish I knew specifically, but I suspect it has a lot to do with a materialistic way of thinking. Stuff. We define our worth based on what we have, the size of our bank account, and how much stuff we can fit in our garage and our storage units, as opposed to just really appreciating the true value of life, which is, connectedness, human beings, and having conversations much like we are now, albeit uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
You're not uncomfortable in here, are you? Tammy Cup and Mike Freeman with me right now. Yeah?
Yeah, I feel like I'm on a field trip.
Ooh, there you go. Well, don't feed the bears. That's
okay.
The guy on the other side of the glass here, don't feed him, okay? He's not supposed to have any cookies or candy or anything like that, all right? There's a machine out in the hallway you can crank for 50 cents and get, the proper food.
Got it.
It's terrible, isn't it? Oh, my gosh. So Guys, since you've been here, Mike, in the last 20 years, have you seen an increase in folks who need these types of services in Northwest Ohio?
Previously, I worked at a facility, and it was starting to build up. It seems like for years that we've taken less and less time. And earlier, Tammy mentioned the fact that they're building houses without front porches anymore, and I thought that was quite an insightful statement. That we don't take the time for just, I guess, communicating and chatting and neighboring and just finding time for those kind of things that seem to help people with their blood pressure. So over the years, I think we have 24 hours in a day, and everyone seems to need to fill it with stuff or time, or it was like filling up our garages and our storage buildings. We do it with our lives. So instead of finding the time that's necessary, and it's very difficult to convince somebody that some of the mental health issues that they bring on themselves, they really do bring on themselves.
Wow, really?
Yeah, we drink too much, we eat too much, we stay up too late, we try to cram in a fun time in 2 days instead of we have 7 days to 5 days to work and 2 days to relax, and we cram in a whole lot of stuff, and it overextends into the Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and so I think we're overwhelming ourselves.
Yeah. So how do you step back from that, Tammy? I mean, because I've got a life, I've got a job, I've got commitments to the Kiwanis and the Optimist and the this and the that and the grandkids and whatever. How do you slow down? What do you tell folks that are in that position?
Well, along with what Michael just mentioned, we do bring it on ourselves.
Yeah.
And it's a person's perception creates their reality.
Okay.
And, that meaning, if you go into something that you have to do, an obligation, for example, but you are in a negative state, if you are, grumpy, if you just have had a terrible morning and you're in that go state of mind.
Right.
That will affect how you perceive the happenings around you. If you are let's say you're at the grocery store and you're in that negative state and somebody walks by with a furrowed brow, you're more likely to interpret that or perceive that they were giving you a dirty look.
Okay. And
so that will become your reality if you accept that. So then you may go on down the aisle grumbling to yourself, well, who are they to judge me? And, and that will feed into your negative state. But if you think about that same scenario and you were having a good day and somebody walked past with a furrowed brow, you might wonder what's wrong with them, or you may not even notice at all. Then that becomes your reality too. And so then you'll just continue on and it doesn't affect you. So how you perceive the world around you is affected by your mood and your emotional state. But once you choose to accept that, then that does become your reality. So what do? You be more mindful of those automatic thoughts. It's sort of like background music. You're always thinking, everybody is. Being more mindful of what are those thoughts? Are they negative or are they more positive? And then learning to grab a hold of the personal power we all have within. You don't have to go with that thought. You can stop that. You can challenge that thought, and you can present a more positive way of thinking. When you change your way of thinking, that changes your mood, and that changes your perception. So it can be the same exact situation. You can have all of that stuff to do, but whether it's a grumbly, stress-filled experience or if it's more of a lighthearted, present-minded experience is really up to the individual.
Wow. That sounds like it might be difficult, especially with some of the people that I know, how they change the way that they look, because that's exactly the way that they have always been.
That's very true, and it is difficult. Thinking habits are the same as behavioral habits, just as one may begin to bite their fingernails.
Sure.
It might be with intent at first, but over time you find that you're chewing on your nails and you're not even thinking about it. It's not a conscious choice to chew your nails. It becomes a subconscious choice. I call it autopilot thinking. It just happens without any conscious intent.
Okay.
Our thinking patterns do the same thing. So if you wake up every morning and grumble and think about how terrible your day is because you're just too busy and you're very, very stressed, well, you may think that with intent, but over time, your mind will say, okay, well, that's a habit. Yeah. Put it back into our autopilot thinking or the subconscious mind. And so without even intentionally or purposefully feeling or thinking that way, it's already playing in your background music. So you're literally setting the stage with a thinking habit. It takes effort, just as it does to break a behavioral habit.
Okay.
But with intent and mindfulness, you can stop that way of thinking, redirect it to a more positive way, and then the positive thinking will then become your new thinking habit.
Man, I'll tell you what, I'm glad you brought her along today.
Me too.
Mike, gee, Christmas. I've got a buddy who comes in here on Thursday. We call him Mr. Grumpy. I need to hook him up with you because he needs the therapy. Okay? He needs it desperately.
I think everybody needs therapy at some point in time. We all need somebody to talk to, and sometimes a fresh perspective and informed understanding of why we do some of the things that we do can empower people. Knowledge is power.
Yeah, no doubt about that. We are in the middle of the medical hour, brought to you by the Medical Specialty Clinics of the Bryan Hospital and Community Health Professionals. And I will get very stressed if I don't pay a few bills, because then Susie will be calling me on the phone saying, hey, why did I not hear these commercials running in the program? And then I will be sitting next to both of you because I'll need you both to get out of that hole. It's 22 minutes after the hour of 10 o'clock on the Q 96.5 FM.
Midsummer celebration here in Northwest Ohio.
More than just an oil change, get in the last team you'll ever need. Get into Estel Chevy Buick in Bryan, 636.
Back into the medical hour here on the Q 96.5 FM, and I have Mike Freeman and Tammy Cup with me, and we got into another conversation off air, and it is probably maybe the biggest in my mind stress provider in the course of a day. And I'm holding it now, but it's the phone, man, that everybody carries nowadays. And Mike made the comment that you have a phone but you never use it.
I try not to.
A cell phone. We're
Yeah, a
talking
cell
about,
phone. Yeah, it's a handheld computer that brings intrusions into your life, and we do it deliberately. And so we not only sit on the porch, we actually carry a phone that's a distraction. It's like a doorbell. You know, people automatically jump every time that phone rings, and I made the comment that I've actually had clients in my office who are paying a good amount of money for professional advice or professional intervention, and will have their phone ring, and we'll answer it. And so it's very important, I guess, to a lot of people to have that intrusion available.
Yeah. It is very important to almost everybody, it seems like, nowadays too. And you want to talk about stress? I can testify to that. I mean, you look down at the phone, and whether it's something that needs your attention because it's an emergency for somebody or a concern for somebody, or it's just totally off the wall, the old fake news idea right nowadays, when you pick it up and read it and go, oh, and it turns out, you know, that never happened anywhere. Has the phone become our biggest enemy nowadays?
I don't know about the biggest, but it certainly is a large contributor to stress.
Okay.
I think that with everyone having their own personal phone, it's always on, it's always in their pocket, purse, or what have you, we have inadvertently imposed a demand to be constantly available to everyone all the time.
Yeah.
As if we don't have enough to do, as if we don't have enough obligations in meeting the needs of our families or ourselves. But
Sure.
now we feel as if we have to be available all the time to everyone. Why we do that to ourselves, I have no idea. It's impossible to be there all the time for everyone or meet everyone's needs. Yet we become incredibly anxious if we see that there's a text message and we've not read it. We don't know who it's from, because we're concerned, well, if we don't answer. So we've shifted to this immediate gratification and the expectation of such, where if we send someone a message and we don't hear back immediately, well, we get a little antsy, and it's only been 30 seconds.
Sure.
You know, what happened to the time of having a phone that was attached to a curly little cord that was stuck to the wall, and if you were out and nobody answered the phone, they just called back later.
Yeah.
And you didn't feel obligated. It didn't even occur to you to be concerned who may have called while you weren't home. That is a huge contributor to our stress and what we impose on ourselves, and we allow ourselves to take on the obligation to always be available to everyone all the time.
Yeah. So how do you deal with it? How do you take that phone and make it a lesser part of your everyday life? Because I don't think most of us can be Mike. Most of us can't just turn it off and leave it in the pocket.
Well,
You know?
that was going to be my answer. It's quite simple. Turn it
Okay.
off.
Oh.
I might
Okay.
suggest, and I
Yeah.
do for a lot of the patients that I work with, is, you know, when, for example, when you're eating dinner, turn it off.
Yeah.
Build back in those times. Yes, we do need to be available. It's just the world that we live in, but it's okay to disconnect. And if that means creating a schedule for yourself and you can share with whoever your contacts are, that, you know, 7 p.m., that's my family time, that's when I disconnect. So if I don't answer, don't panic.
Sure,
And it's not
sure.
because I'm angry with you or that I've been in some kind of a horrible life-altering event. It's because I'm spending quality time with my family.
Yeah.
It's about habits
Yeah.
and changing your way of thinking. You really don't have to be available all the time.
Wow. That's a big one, I think, for an awful lot of people, because I can even say it for myself. There are times when you'll send somebody sends you a message, and it comes in, it's urgent. You think it's urgent, okay? So you reply right away, okay? Because it's urgent.
Yeah.
And then you don't hear back from them for 5 or 6 hours. Now all of a sudden you're upset because, hey, you know, I mean, I thought this was urgent, you know? Which is, my wife and I, Kathy and I, have tried to get over that, because we always feel like you don't want to talk back and forth on the phone, okay? Because a text that I'm sending that might be very, very, you know, vanilla, all right, becomes, oh, hold it, what does he mean here, all right? Or vice versa. And then you don't get to see one another for a while, and when you do finally get to see one another, there's tension between the two of you.
Well, the big problem with text messaging is there are no nonverbals included. And humans, when we communicate with one another, 90%, if not more of it, is related to what we perceive from that individual's body language and their nonverbals and the way the voice fluctuates and the tone of the voice. all of that is absent in a text message. Thank goodness for emojis. At least they've thrown us a bone in that way. Give me a smiley face or a frowny face or something. So I have some sort of an indication. Does your have a nice day mean have a nice day? Or does your have a nice day mean, have a nice day?
Yeah.
We don't know unless we have some kind of an indication.
Right.
And so it goes back to your perception creating your reality. And if you read have a nice day, but you're in a sour mood and you perceive that as a snide remark, you will take that with you and that will be your reality.
Yeah.
And so it can create a lot of explosions that really needn't be there. They're and not meant to be in that way, but how we are trying to evolve to a communication style with other humans without those nonverbals, I don't see it happening effectively.
Yeah, it's frightening. There's no doubt about that. And now we're running the world that way too. Yeah, okay, which is a little scary in itself because you don't have a feel for that. I would have to think that for a lot of folks maybe that are listening right now, maybe some of them are thinking I should go see these guys, that maybe they could help me. So are you the types of folks that take new clients on? I mean, you hear so many doctors that don't have. I'd love to be able to see you, but I don't have any more room in the inn here at this point in time.
For those who have been waiting for this phone number, it's 419-630-2125. I know you've been just waiting for that, too, so I'll say it again here in a moment.
He won't answer it.
That's my office phone.
Okay.
That will be answered and responded to. That's a promise.
And the number again, Mike?
419-630-2125, and I can connect you with Tammy from there or myself. So, but don't hesitate, please do that. And I might give you some suggestions on how to manage that phone.
Please.
As well. I've thought about this, and I often thought that if you don't have a phone, everybody else does. So all you have to do in the crowd, just say, hey, does someone have a cell phone I could borrow for a moment? And I'm sure you'll get 4 or 5 people who would be willing to volunteer their phone. So you really don't need a phone.
Yeah. I used to think about that. I used to be an on-the-road salesperson, and I used to enjoy the idea of being on the road and nobody being able to get to me. Now, once you got to the other end, there might be 25 things waiting on you once you got there. But for those hour or 2 hours or whatever you were driving, nobody could touch you. Then they put a car phone in, okay? Yeah. And then they could get you at any time at that point in time. And now we've evolved to where we are right now. How young is too young to start putting kids on phones, guys? I mean, that's been frightening to me. You see some of these little dudes wandering around that are 6 or 7 years old with their iPads or iPhones, and they're just texting back and forth. I mean, are we not heading in the wrong direction with something like that?
I would agree. It's difficult to say an actual definitive age.
Sure.
We all develop at different rates. We mature differently. But I think it's important to be mindful. The phones now aren't like the flip phones when they first came out, where you could simply make a call or then eventually send a text, and that was about as good as it got. Now the phones, you can get on the internet. You can search things. You can get on YouTube. It's like a computer in your pocket.
Sure.
To afford a child that much freedom, if you will, is really unfair to them. It's giving them more accessibility, more freedom, more things at their fingertips to look at than they are really developmentally able to handle the temptation of looking or to even know better and to get into. They will find themselves in situations that they do not know how to handle. What happens if a pop-up comes up, and sometimes pop-ups are obnoxious and very intrusive, or some of them are the misleading ones that will say, well, you have a virus on your phone, click here, and then it ends up that kind of
then
stuff.
You're in real trouble.
Indeed, and we've all encountered that. Well, a child does not know. They're not developmentally prepared to figure out what to do with that, so it's actually quite unfair to offer them all of this freedom and all of this information and expect them to decipher what's appropriate and what's inappropriate. I know there's filters and there's things that are available, and you can, when the kid's on there, they can only get to certain sites and whatnot. So at least we're trying to be mindful of that, but in the meantime, when they're buried in a phone, they're missing out on the things like, getting dirty fingernails and jumping in mud puddles, which in my opinion is far more important, and making sure that we don't train these young minds into the same trap that we've fallen into, which is margin to margin, stress-filled, constant. I have to be doing something, and that constant need for input.
Sure.
I think personally and professionally, to be quite honest, it is feeding into some of these children when they grow up and they have a device in front of them all the time. They have a TV, and they have a tablet, and they have a cell phone, and they have all these forms of input, and they're watching videos, and they're doing all of these things, and then they go into a classroom and they're expected to sit quietly without a TV, without that input, and pay attention to one thing, which is what the teacher is presenting. Mm-hmm. I think they're being wired at a young age that they need multiple forms of input simultaneously. I'm going to click from this, then I'm going to look at this, and just bouncing all over the place. And then to say, go to the classroom, and now you sit still and watch just one thing. And by the way, it's not on a computer screen, and it's not, a video presentation. It's a human being. I feel it's a bit unfair to expect them to be able to shift in that regard as far as their input and their attention.
You can see that in these kids nowadays. I agree, 100%. Nothing wrong with the children of America or the young people in America, but that is something that is causing them to be rewired, as you put it. And I think that is correct. So it's interesting. All right. Well, I have to do some more bill paying and a news at this point in time. How's that? Tammy Cup, Mike Freeman with me from Community hospitals here in Williams County, and basically they are the counselors. If you're needing some help and have some issues, and we'll get into some of the other things. We kind of got off into a tangent, but we tend to do that. So that's why you have to be coming back in more often, because there are so many things that you do, and we can chat so many different ways. But not if you're not here. Tammy, how's that? Or Mike, how's that?
That's good.
All right. We'll step away. When we come back, we're going to change the focus just a little bit here on the Q.
365 AccuWeather forecast, clouds and breaks of sun, humid shower and thunderstorms.
more information on mental health services available in Defiance, Henry, Williams, and Fulton counties. This message was sponsored by the Fort County.
And back for our final 20 minutes or so here on our medical hour today, being brought to you by the medical specialty clinics at the Bryan Hospital and the community hospital. Community health professionals, I'll get it out there. Thank goodness I don't do this for a living. And we do have folks from the counseling services here at the hospital today. We have Mike Freeman and Tammy Cup with us. And we got a phone call off air, guys, that said, man, 2 thumbs up for that Tammy Cup. She's hit it right on the head, man. It's these darn phones that are driving us all to where we're heading. And I think I think everybody is starting to realize that and understand that and see that, and hopefully we can deal with it. But I'm afraid maybe the genie's out of the bottle right now, guys. What do you think?
I would agree.
It's like any other behavior, though. If you can set it aside and, like Tammy suggested, over the dinner hour, or after 7 o'clock, the phone is off, or the computer is off, and the access to the World Wide Web and internet gaming and whatever the young kids are doing. And because internet addiction is becoming more of a problem, it's DSM-5. It's certainly something that's becoming troublesome. Mm-hmm. Parents are calling and saying, "What do we do?" They stay up until all hours of the night and sleep all day. And I say, "How long have they been gaming?" And they say, "What's gaming?" So I say, just suggest, well, talk to your son or your daughter.
Yeah.
And they'll give you an overview of gaming and first-person shooter or something like that, and group games and an interactive kind of formats. So, did you ever think that you would ever be talking about gaming addictions when you started doing this, Mike? At the very early, I mean, there was no, at that point in time, I don't think we even had Pac-Man or anything, did we? Well, there was gambling addictions. I mean,
okay.
That the Vegas and the cards and the slots and those kind of things. Those were, in a sense, similar. I mean, they do a lot of the same things to pull you in and get you excited, and the stimulus and those kind of things. But it's a whole new developing child world because the mind's developing so fast and so immediate, and without the sunshine and without the exposure to the weather and the changes. They live sort of in a bubble, if you will, if
mm-hmm.
they're spending 6, 8, and 10 hours on those, those gaming. So it's nothing about, against the gaming. It's just the amount of time that's devoted to it, I think, is excessive. Yeah. Is there any correlation between gaming and any of the drug issues that we have nowadays? Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Addictions are addictions, and,
okay.
and some of the same correlations of addictions. Giving up opportunities for social and leisure activities. Finding that it's not as healthy for you. There's a number of things. There's correlates to gambling. There's correlates to gaming. There's shopping. Any of those kind of things. And if those correlates are all related to each other about how they attract you, how they keep you involved, and how they immerse you in that activity. And so there's certain things that sometimes has to interrupt that.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, with an addiction of alcohol or drugs, the interruption can be a medical issue. They end up in the hospital requiring a surgery, and we're not aware that they have an alcohol addiction. Well, we find out very quickly after about the first 24 hours in the hospital that they do have an addiction because they start having withdrawal symptoms. Okay. Withdrawal symptoms happen with the phone. You tell somebody to turn their phone off for an hour, they start having literally withdrawal symptoms or a greater anxiety about having that access to the world or to others shut off. So withdrawal symptoms being what they are, I mean, the same holds true with drugs. The reward is there if we need to fix, or we need the drug itself. We have anxiety that starts. We have heart palpitations. We have breathing difficulties or sweating or whatever the withdrawal symptoms may be for the particular drug. So it's true of a whole lot of things across the board. Not all the symptoms are alike, and not all of them are are we can say they're all alike across the board. They're not. Everyone is a little different, but there are some similarities.
Yeah. Have we figured out why people become addicted to anything at all? I mean, are there things in the studies now that are saying, hey, if you're right-handed and got blue eyes and you were born in February, you're going to be addicted to this?
Yeah. I think we all have a propensity to addiction.
Okay.
We find that it's pleasurable, for one thing.
Sure.
It rewards us, an instantaneous reward. People scratch off lottery tickets outside the convenience stores and then turn around and take their winnings back in, or spend extra money, or spend money they don't have on those things for that immediate gratification or that rush. There are people who buy clothing, especially online. We'll go back to online. We'll pick online a little bit. It's not necessarily because they need the clothing. It's
right.
because of the excitement of and the buildup of the anticipation of the purchase.
Wow. That is amazing, and that's another thing that's been added here in the last few years. So, guys, it's becoming harder and harder. Now I do understand why you have so many people coming in with depression, huh? Because, gosh, everything is kind of punching you every day, isn't it, huh?
Yeah. We're in, from the moment we get up, we're television to radio, to to internet. We're bombarded with, Tammy and I both do hypnosis, and hypnosis to the subconscious mind is sort of like, with those loud music or loud advertisings and, those be there kind of things. Even when you're driving, you're at a lull in your moment of your day, and your subconscious may be listening to the radio or listening to the television in the background, saying you really need this, you really want this, you really deserve this.
Right.
And subconsciously we integrate that into our, and start looking to buy it because we may be unfulfilled because that announcer said somehow we're lacking or we're missing out.
Yeah. Well, we try. That's fine.
Yeah.
I shouldn't do that. Now you're never coming back, are you, Tammy? You're never gonna, it's like, no, look at that. Okay, that was it. I was on the line there for a minute, but now the boy's part of the problem. I can't go back and talk to him ever again. But it's funny because when you look back and you think of the training that I went through being part of this business and being part of a marketing type life, which is what I've been into. We have tried to find those little key words and those little key phrases, those little things that stick.
Yeah.
And so now all of a sudden those little things are starting to come back and get us, Tammy, it sounds like.
They are. I believe a lot of it, we can go right back to the social media, the cell phones, that constant bombardment. Social media in particular. When people post things on Facebook, they generally don't post their morning face and their bedhead or their messy house.
Sure.
What you see are the pictures of the perfectly clean house, and when the children's faces happen to be clean and maybe they're in matching clothes, or the perfectly placed outside photo where everybody's all happy and smiling. We post pictures of our new cars. We post pictures of our new things, our new stuff. People forget to remember that what is on Facebook or any social media, I don't want to pick on Facebook alone, but people forget to remember that's more of like a storefront window, if you will. If you think about us as humans and our experience, we have that storefront window that we present. We try to, we want everything's neatly pressed and pinned and it matches and everything's clean and it looks lovely. We also have that working area of our life where that's where people come in and shop, and things get unfolded occasionally and somebody might leave some trash here or there. And if you've ever worked in retail, if you go back behind in the storage area, it's a train wreck back there. It's atrocious. That's really what our lives, if you think about it, it's a nice representation. Everybody has that terribly messed up storage room. We all have that working area as well. That's life. But when you get on and you're constantly looking at Facebook, you're constantly looking at social media, you then fall under the assumption that's everybody's everyday life, their storefront window. We forget to remember that they have those other areas, and so then what do? I need that. Well, look at how happy they are. They have a new car, and look at their smiles.
Yeah.
Look at how perfect. Oh, and look at that neatly pressed shirt. Well, that looks like a new shirt. I should probably get a new shirt. And so it really contributes to our drive to be in that materialistic, somewhat competitive state of being, is because we fall under that illusion that everyone's perfect life is, and then we try to live comparatively.
Yeah, yeah. And nobody's life. I have a wonderful life, but there are days, which is everybody. Yeah, everybody's got those days.
My life is wonderful, but it's a mess.
Yeah,
but it's a beautiful mess.
Yeah, and that's the thing I think we forget oftentimes, isn't it, Tom?
Indeed.
That is a beautiful mess, and that's what you're kind of here for, and why you're here.
It's my mess.
Yeah, and I love it, man, and that's why I dress the way that I dress. There's not a lot of changes in my life, Tammy. I guess so. I'm a mess all the time.
See, good for you. You don't need therapy then. Just
Not
be
so
messy.
far. Yeah, at this point in time. Well, but it's because I hang out with guys like Feely and Smith and those kind of guys, and
That's
they're a
right.
mess too.
On to something.
Yeah, so it's always something, and I keep on sliding. You mentioned hypnosis, okay? And when Mike was here the last time, we chatted a lot about that. How does hypnosis play a part in something like this with the problems that we're having? Can I sit down and hypnotize you, and you actually put the phone down for 3 hours out of the day, or how does that work?
Well, hypnosis works in a way, you get the individual into a very relaxed state, a physically relaxed state, in
Sure.
which case that mind-body connection, if the body is physically relaxed, then the mind tends to follow suit.
Okay.
When you're in that place, it's sort of like that sleep-wake place. Perhaps you get there right after you have eaten a nice, filling Thanksgiving dinner, and
Okay.
you're propped back in that recliner, and you're not quite asleep, and you can hear everything that's going on around you, but you really don't care. You're
Yeah.
kind of in that autopilot sort of thinking.
Yep.
Well, I spoke a little bit earlier about that subconscious mind. That's where habits are. That's where those things that either a behavioral habit, a thinking habit, all of those types of habits, they go into that subconscious part of the mind, because our mind likes to keep the conscious or the on-purpose thinking as clear as possible, sort of like the working memory of a computer.
Okay.
So if the brain figures out, well, this is going to happen over and over and over again, we're going to put it in autopilot so we can keep our working memory clean. So when you're in that relaxed state of mind, you're in that autopilot place, in which case that's the part of the brain that's receptive to what it's hearing. So with hypnosis, if you get somebody very, very relaxed and get them into that autopilot state, if you will, they still are very well aware of what is going on around them. They hear everything that we're saying. But the part of the brain that's receiving the message is that subconscious part. And
Okay.
so that's how it is so effective in helping people to really overcome these habitual thinking patterns or habitual behaviors, because we're speaking to and they're processing that information with the part of the brain where it actually resides.
Okay. Okay. Interesting.
It is.
And you've had success with what types of difficulties there with the hypnosis?
Anxiety, stress management, being just more of a positive thinker, kind of breaking out of those negative automatic thinking patterns, smoking cessation, weight release, phobias,
Okay.
some addictive behaviors even, and helping to reduce that drive, because addiction, drug addiction, as Michael mentioned, drug addiction, shopping addiction, all the addictions live in the same part of the brain, which is the subconscious.
Okay.
Well, part of that addictive behavior is just the subconscious drive. When you get off of work, you're immediately reaching into your purse and pulling a cigarette out. You're not on purpose or consciously thinking, I'm going to smoke on my way as soon as I get to the car.
Right.
You just find yourself smoking. Well, with the hypnosis, you can help to sort of rewrite that auto program, if you will, where that automatic autopilot drive is not as strong, it's not as loud, or not there at all.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. It's amazing, but we've blown through just about an hour, guys. How's that? We sat down and said, what are we going to talk about? And I said, we'll figure it out. And we figured it out. And I really appreciate having the two members of the counseling services there of CHWC with me today, Mike Freeman and also Tammy Cupp. And Mike, again, one more time, if somebody has listened to us all day long and said, man, you know what, maybe I could go in, because you're not going to hypnotize everybody who walks through the door, but because that's not the idea. But I have a few problems and a few issues, and I could use some help, not necessarily hypnotism, but just somebody to talk to, somebody to work with. How do they get a hold of you?
If you have not thrown your phone away, 419-630-2125, and Tammy are there Monday through Friday, with 6 a.m. to usually 4:30 p.m. So we we'll call you back, leave a message, that kind of thing. We would prefer you just call us and talk to us, because it is difficult to call you back because of course, confidentiality and sensitivity about a phone call. So please keep calling, but if you cannot reach us, just leave a message and we'll try to connect with you at some point.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, again, thank you guys for being part of this, and please come back. And Mike, I know you're in the process of calling it quits. You're going to retire here relatively soon, so you need to be back at least once before you retire.
That we can make that arrangement, yes.
Wonderful. And then after that happens, Tammy, we're going to lock in for, what do you think, every 6 weeks or so? She'll need a refresher
for the next 25 years.
There you go. Tammy and Mike, thank you. That's going to wrap up our show today, all brought to you by the Medical Specialty Clinics of the Bryan Hospital and the Community Health Professionals. And we thank Tammy and Mike. And if you do need some help, please give them a call, because they are wonderful folks to talk to.
Bryan Hospital provides
Okay.